Guess who are you? Proud Lord said that I'm a spouse so low. Only a cat of a different coat. It's all the truth I know. Coat of gold and a coat of red. A lion still has claws, and mine alone has sharp lotus long and sharp as gold. And so he spoke, and so he spoke, the Lord of Castamere. And now the rains weep for his halls of flow, one left to hear, and no soul to hear.
The drums were pounding, 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 and her head with them. Pipes wailed and flutes drilled from the musicians' gallery at the foot of the hall. Fiddles screeched, horns blew, the skins curled a lively tune, but the drumming drove them all. The sound echoed off the rafters while the guests ate, drank, and shouted to one another. Walder Frey must be as deaf as a stone to call this music. Catelyn sipped a cup of wine and watched Jingle Bell prance the sounds of Alisan. At least she thought it was meant to be Alisan. With these players it might have easily have been the bear and the maiden fair. Outside the rain still fell, but within the twins the air was thick and hot. A fire roared in the hearth, and the rows of torches burned smokily from the iron sconces on the wall. Yet most of the heat came off the bodies of the wedding guests, jammed in so thick along the benches that every man who tried to lift his cup poked his neighbour in the ribs. Even on the dais they were closer than Catelyn would have liked. She had been placed between Sir Ryman Frey and Roose Bolton, and had gotten a good nose full of both. Sir Ryman drank as if Westeros was about to run short of wine, and sweated it all out under his arms. He bathed in lemon water, she judged, but no lemon could mask such a sour scent. Roose Bolton had a sweeter scent to him, yet no more pleasant. He sipped hippocras in preference to wine or mead, and ate but little. Catelyn could not fault him for his lack of appetite. The wedding feast began with a thin leek soup, followed by a salad of green beans, onions, beets, river pike poached in almond milk, mounds of mashed turnips that were cold before they reached the table, jellied calf's brains, and a dish of stringy beef. It was poor fare to set before a king, and the calf's brains turned Catelyn's stomach. Yet Berald ate uncomplaining, and her brother was too caught up with his bride to pay much attention. He would never have guessed Edmure complained of Rosalind all the way from Riverrun to the twins. Husband and wife ate from a single plate, drank from a single cup, and exchanged chaste kisses between sips. Most of the dishes Edmure waved away. She could not blame him for that. She remembered little of the food served at her own wedding feast. Did I even taste it, or spend the whole time gazing at Ned's face, wondering who he was? But Rosalind's smile had a fixed quality to it, as if someone had sewn it onto her face. Well, she's made wedded, but the bedding's yet to come. No doubt she's as terrified as I was. Rob was seated between Alex Frey and Fairwalda, two of the more evil Frey maidens. At the wedding feast, I hope you will not refuse to dance with my daughters, Walder Frey had said. It would please an old man's heart. His heart should be well pleased then, and Rob had done his duty like a king. He danced with each of the girls, with Edmure's bride and the 8th Lady Frey, with the widow Amay, Roose Bolton's wife Fat Walda, with the pimply twins Sarah and Sarah, even Miss Sheree, Lord Walter's youngest, who must have been all of 6. Catelyn wondered whether the Lord of the Crossing would be satisfied, or if he'd find cause for complaint in all the other daughters and granddaughters who had not had a turn with the king. Your sister sounds very well, she said to Sir Ryman Frey, trying to be pleasant. Their aunts and cousins. Sir Ryman drank a swallow of wine, the sweat trickling down his cheek into his beard. A sour man, and in his cups, Catelyn thought. The late Lord Frey might not be when it came to be feeding his guests, but he did not stink 6, respectively. Neither of them was drinking, along with Patrick Mallister and Daisy Mormont. They were her son's guards this evening. A wedding feast was not a battle, but there were always dangers where the men were in their cups, and a king should never be unguarded. Catelyn was glad of that, and even more glad of the swords belts hanging on pegs along the walls. No man needs a long sword to deal with jellied calves' brains. Everyone thought my lord should choose fair Walda. Lady Walda Bolton said, told Sir Wendell, shouting to be heard above the music. Fat Walda was a round pink butterball of a girl with watery blue eyes, limp yellow hair, and a huge bosom, yet her voice was a fluttering squeak. It was hard to picture in the Lord of the Dreadford. In the Dreadford, in her pink lace and her cape of fair. My lord grandfather had offered her his bride's weight in silver as a dowry, though, so my lord Bolton picked me. The girls' students giggled when she laughed. I weigh 6 stone more than fair Walda, but that was the first time I was glad of it. I'm Lady Bolton now, and my cousin's still a maid, and she'll be 19 soon. Poor thing. The Lord of Dreadford paid the chatter no mind, Catelyn saw. Sometimes he tasted a bit of this, a spin of that, tearing bread from the loaf with short, strong fingers, but the meals could not distract him. Bolton had made a toast to Lord Walter's grandsons where the wedding feast began, pointedly mentioning that Walter and Walter were in care of his bastard son. From the way the old man had squinted at him, his mouth stuck in the air, Catelyn knew he had heard the unspoken threat. Was there ever a wedding less joyful? She wondered until she remembered her poor Sansa and her marriage to the imp. Mother take mercy on her, she has a gentle soul. The heat and smoke and noise were making her sick. The musicians in the gallery might be numerous and loud, but they were not especially gifted. Catelyn took another swallow of wine and allowed a page to refill her cup. A few more hours and this will all be over. But this hour tomorrow, Bob would be off to another battle, this time with the Iron Men at Mount Catelyn. Strange how the prospect seemed almost a relief. He will win his battle. He wins all his battles in the Ironborn without a king. Besides, Ned taught him well. The drums were pounding, and Jacobella off to pasture once again, but the music was so loud you could scarcely hear his bells. Above the din came a sudden snarling as 2 dogs fell upon each other over a scrap of meat. They hauled across the floor, snapping and biting as the howl of mirth went up. Someone doused him with a flagon of ale, and they broke apart. One limped towards the dais. Lord Walter's toothless laughter opened in a bark of laughter, as the dripping wet dog shook ale and air all over 3 of his grandsons. The sight of the dogs made Catelyn wits once more for Grey Wind, but Robert's direwolf was nowhere to be seen. Lord Walter refused to allow him slowly